I still remember the day that doll came into my life. I was 8 years old, a quiet child who preferred the company of books and broken toys over the noisy laughter of other kids. It was my birthday, and the sky was grey, drizzling a fine mist that made the world outside look blurry and unreal. My aunt, who lived 2 towns over and rarely visited, arrived late that evening, wrapped in a heavy coat that smelled faintly of rain and something else. Something old, like forgotten attics and closed-up rooms. She handed me a box without much ceremony. The wrapping paper was damp and tearing at the corners, and I remember thinking that it looked less like a gift and more like something discarded. But I smiled politely and tore it open. Inside was a doll, not the bright plastic kind you see stacked in store windows. No, this doll was something else entirely. She was made of fabric, her body stitched together from faded cloth, and her face was hand-painted in delicate strokes. Her glass eyes were pale blue, almost colorless, and one of them had a faint crack running through it like a spider web. Her dress was tattered lace, yellowed with age, and yet there was something about her that held my gaze, something that made the small hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I didn't want to be rude, so I thanked my aunt, who only nodded and gave me a strange little smile. Later, I overheard my mother whispering angrily to her in the kitchen. I couldn't catch every word, but I heard enough. "You shouldn't have brought that thing. She has a right to it. It's family. After what happened to—" A clatter of dishes cut the rest off, and when my mother returned to the room, her smile was too bright, too forced. That night, I placed the doll on a chair across from my bed. I named her Lella. It seemed to fit, though I couldn't say why. At first, everything was normal as it could be with Lila sitting there, her cracked eye glinting in the dark whenever headlights passed outside. I would wake sometimes, feeling a pressure in the room, like someone was watching me. I told myself it was my imagination. Then the whispers began. Soft, so soft I thought I was dreaming at first. A tiny voice, threading through the heavy dark of my room. "Come play. Don't leave me." I would sit up, heart pounding, and find nothing but the steady hum of the heater and the faint creaks of the houses settling. I told my parents once. They laughed it off. My mother patted my head and said I had an overactive imagination. My father just mumbled something about too many ghost stories before bed. Still, I moved Lila to the closet the next day. I felt stupid doing it, but I couldn't bear waking up to see her face anymore. The next morning, I found her back on the chair. I accused my mom, but she denied it. My dad said he hadn't even been in my room. I tried to believe them. I tried to believe I had somehow moved her myself, without remembering. That it was just sleepwalking, or a dream. But deep down, I knew better. The doll wanted to be seen. The next few days were worse. I would find her in different places, sitting on my desk, perched on the windowsill, once even lying right next to me in bed. Her cracked eye inches from my face. I screamed so loud that night, the neighbors called to ask if everything was okay. My parents were angry, tired of my games, as they called them. My mother threatened to throw the doll away if I kept it up. I almost agreed. I almost begged her to, but every time I tried to leave Lila somewhere, I would find her back in my room, waiting, watching. I tried locking her in the attic once. I stuffed her inside an old trunk and snapped the rusty latch shut. I even shoved a heavy box on top for good measure. That night, I slept easier, convinced I had won, until around 3 a.m. when the soft, dragging footsteps started overhead. They circled, slow and deliberate, above my ceiling, back and forth, like something. Searching, I lay frozen under the covers, every muscle rigid, listening as the steps grew heavier, louder, until they seemed to stand directly above my bed. And then, in the suffocating silence that followed, I heard it. A faint childish giggle, right behind my ear. When I bolted upright, gasping, the room was empty, except for the doll, sitting neatly at the foot of my bed, her cracked eyes shining in the moonlight. And that's when I realized Lila had never really been a gift. She had been waiting for me. I stopped sleeping after that night. At least, not in any way that mattered. I would lie in bed, eyes burning, body rigid, listening for the soft scrape of footsteps, the whisper of cloth brushing against the walls, the faint giggle that sometimes slipped through the cracks of the night. And Lila would always be there, somewhere in the room, even if I had locked her away, even if I had buried her under piles of blankets in the hall closet. It didn't matter. She always found her way back. My parents noticed, of course. They saw the dark circles blooming under my eyes, the way my hands trembled at breakfast, how I jumped at the slightest sound. But they didn't understand. They thought I was acting out, seeking attention. My mother scolded me. My father grew cold and distant. Once, in a fit of frustration, my mom snatched Lila from my bed and stormed outside, tossing her into the garbage bin with a final satisfying clatter. I watched from the window, heart pounding, a small part of me daring to hope it might finally be over. That night I slept more soundly than I had in weeks, until I woke up to the soft thudding sound at my window. I sat up slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. The curtains fluttered slightly in the draught, and beyond the thin glass, I could see the outline of something small, something pale, tapping its tiny hand against the pane. Tap, tap, tap. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body wouldn't move. I was rooted to the bed, staring as the tiny shape outside the window tilted its head at an unnatural angle. The next morning, when my parents went to take out the trash, they found the garbage bin empty. No doll, no torn lace, nothing. When I told them, they accused me of sneaking out during the night, of digging her back out because I was obsessed. My mother even threatened to send me to a therapist. I think part of her wanted to believe I was just crazy. That would have been easier. But deep down, she was afraid too. I could see it in the way her hands shook when she touched my things, in the way she refused to go into my room after dark. The days that followed blurred into a nightmare haze. I began hearing whispers constantly, not just at night. Tiny voices brushing against my ears at school, in the car, even during dinner. They spoke in urgent, broken fragments. Come with us. It's so lonely here. Stay forever. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye. Small darting shadows that disappeared when I turned to look. Lila's face seemed to shift when I wasn't watching, her painted smile growing just a little wider, her cracked eye glinting with something that felt almost hungry. Sleep became dangerous. Whenever I drifted off, even for a second, I would find myself in that other place. It looked like my room at first, but the walls were wrong, too long and sagging, pulsing like living skin. The furniture twisted and melted in the corners. And standing there, always standing there, was Lila. Only it wasn't just her anymore. There were others, children, dozens of them, pale and glassy-eyed, their mouths stitched shut with black thread. They moved slowly, jerking and twitching like broken marionettes. And their eyes, God, their eyes, were empty holes, dark and endless. They would crowd around me, reaching out with cold skeletal fingers, whispering, begging, "Stay with us. We miss you. You're ours now." Each time I woke up, I felt a little less real, like pieces of me were still trapped in that place, like they were pulling me in, thread by thread. One evening, desperate and terrified, I tried to tell my best friend Mia about it. We sat on the swings at the empty park, the sky bleeding into a bruised purple as the sun dipped low. She laughed at first, nudging me with her foot. "You're such a freak. You know that? Talking dolls? Haunted dreams?" But when she saw my face, her smile faltered. "Maybe you should just get rid of it for real," she said, frowning. "Not just throw it away. Burn it. Smash it. Something." The idea lit a spark of hope in me. That night, when my parents were asleep, I took Lila and crept into the backyard. I built a small fire in the metal trash can we used for yard clippings. The flames flickered weakly at first, struggling against the damp night air. I hesitated, holding the doll over the fire. For a moment, her face seemed to change. The cracked glass eye gleamed wetly, almost as if a tear was sliding down it. And her painted smile twisted, drooping into something like sorrow. "Don't leave me," a voice whispered, so soft it might have been the wind. I threw her into the flames anyway. The fire roared to life, spitting sparks into the air. I watched as the lace dress blackened, the fabric skin curled and withered, the glass eye finally cracking apart with a sharp, snapping sound. It was done. I collapsed onto the cold grass, shaking, exhausted but relieved. For the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter, cleaner. I thought it was over. I was wrong. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard the whispers again. Only this time they weren't pleading. They were laughing. And when I opened my eyes, I saw her, standing at the foot of my bed, no longer made of cloth or paint, but flesh. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even breathe properly. She stood there, her skin a sickly pale shade that almost glowed in the dark. Her once frilly dress hung in tatters, clinging to her thin frame. Her hair, once stiff and synthetic, now draped in matted clumps over her face. But the worst part, the part that made my heart shrivel inside my chest, was her smile. It was no longer painted on. It was real. Flesh stretching over two small teeth, curving in a grin that was both eager and wrong. "Lila?" I whispered, barely able to form the word. She tilted her head, just like she used to. But now it was too human, and not human enough. I clutched the bedsheet, trying to convince myself it was a dream, that any second now I'd jolt awake, sweating and gasping. But I didn't. She took a step closer. Her bare feet made no sound on the wooden floor, but I could feel the cold spreading as she moved, like she carried the grave with her. "Why did you leave me?" she murmured. Her voice was like shards of broken music boxes, sweet and sharp at the same time. Every syllable scraped against my nerves. I didn't want..." My voice cracked. "I didn't know." "You promised," she hissed, her face twisting, the smile falling away like peeling paint to reveal a scowl, so dark, so ancient, it made my stomach churn. I backed up against the headboard. "I never promised anything," I cried. She moved faster than I thought possible, suddenly inches from my face, her glassy eyes burning holes into mine. "You played with me," she said, her breath cold against my skin. You made me yours. Now you're mine too. I tried to bolt, throwing myself off the bed and scrambling toward the door. But the house around me had changed. The hallway was longer, darker. The walls sagged inward like lungs exhaling their last breath. Strange noises echoed through the corridor. The giggling of unseen children, the slither of dragging feet. I stumbled blindly, heart slamming against my ribs. Somewhere behind me, I heard the patter of tiny feet following, slow and steady. I burst into my parents' room, flicking the light switch wildly. Nothing. The bulb stayed dead, only a cold, unnatural twilight, bleeding in through the windows. My parents lay on the bed, unmoving, faces blank, eyes wide open but hollow, as if something had scooped the souls right out of them. I backed away, gagging, tears blinding me. Then I heard the whispers again, closer now, circling me, filling the air like smoke. Stay with us. Play forever. No more lonely nights. And through the mist of voices, Lila emerged. She was not alone. The pale, stitched-mouthed children stood behind her, rows and rows of them, stretching down the impossible hallway, filling every corner of the house. Some were missing limbs. Others dragged broken toys or clutched rotted teddy bears. All of them watched me with hungry, empty eyes. You see, Lala said, her voice syrupy with glee, we were all left behind, forgotten, broken. She reached out, her fingers impossibly long now, curling toward my face. But you can fix us. I shook my head violently, backing into a corner. No, please, I'm not. I'm just a kid. So were we, she whispered. Then they lunged, dozens of cold, tiny hands grabbing, clawing, pulling me down into the dark. I fought, kicked, screamed until my throat tore raw, but it was like struggling against an ocean of ice. They were too many, and their grip was relentless. I was sinking into their world, where the walls breathed, and the nights never ended, and the only sound was laughter and sobbing, blending into one endless, maddening hum. But just before the darkness swallowed me completely, I saw it. In the swirling chaos, at the very center of their world, stood a house, a dollhouse, old, battered, identical to mine, but grotesquely alive, pulsing and heaving like a living creature. I realized with a sick jolt that we were inside it, that we had always been inside it. Every room, every hallway, every shadow had been stitched together from forgotten dreams and broken promises. And at the top window of the dollhouse, watching it all with gleeful malice, was something bigger. Something that wore the shape of a little girl, but whose eyes gleamed with ancient hunger. Lela was just the beginning. She was only the invitation. The real horror was the thing that owned her. And now, it owned me too. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Only a laugh. A child's laugh, my own. And then everything went black.